Hello, everyone. Saturday, April 23rd, 10:56 a.m. It is the Saturday before Divine Mercy Sunday. We are in the octave of Easter still, and I hope everybody is having a grace-filled octave and a grace-filled week. We're off from school this week to celebrate Easter. My kids were off from school. I shouldn't say we. In my house, got a had a resurrection like Jesus did. I redid my house this week. I repainted. I am still in the middle of repainting. I redecorated, and I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. And that's not what this video is about. So, I wanted to just follow up on the last video because there were some scary comments. One scary comment in particular about how Jesus would never fast during a high holy day. So, obviously, what I said got lost in translation from that last video. So if you go back and watch that video, I started with talking about the Easter octave and how it's a time for celebration. But what I wanted to get at was we can lose the spirit of penance outside of Lent. So we transition, obviously, from Lent into Easter, especially the octave, so the 8 days. So let's just clarify. And I guess maybe I take for granted that people know this stuff and you know what they say about assumptions. And it's becoming obvious to me. So my channel has grown a little bit. And when it started, there was like 30 people, half of whom I knew, watching my videos. And so it was kind of more like shop talk, kind of just having, shooting the breeze, having a conversation about the faith, presenting some interesting info, reading from some more traditional catechisms, things like that. And now it's gotten to the point where there's like 500 subscribers or so, and I totally appreciate that. But it's becoming obvious to me that I have to approach this channel now like I approach my job. And in the secular world, I'm a private investigator, so I'm constantly on trial, if you will, by attorneys. Everything I say is questioned. Every observation I make is put under scrutiny. And so you're not going to rattle me in the comment section like I'm used to this. It's all good. Obviously, I something got lost in that video, and people took the meaning of what I was saying to mean that you should fast and do penance during Easter, during the Easter octave, and that's not what I meant. So anyway, I'm going to have to approach this a little more carefully. In doing that, I think I'm going to be doing a lot more reading so that what I'm trying to get across is more clear. So I'm going to try to find sources that are trying to get my point across that are by more reputable sources than me, little old me. So today I want to read what Catholic Answers has to say on this topic, and I'll post a link below. And this was published on 4/23/21, and it's by a Joe Heschmeyer, and it's called "Should You Be Fasting During Easter?" Getting back to the octave, I guess what I took for granted was that people understood that the 8 days between Easter and Divine Mercy Sunday is called the octave, and it's considered in the church to be one day, one holy day. So obviously, no, we don't fast and do penance during high holy days. And even during the year, I had said I fast and abstain. I abstain from meat on Fridays, and I fast every Wednesday throughout the whole year, unless something comes up. And what that something coming up is, if there is a solemnity, if there is a holy day, then that takes precedence and it's a day of celebration, and I switch the days of my fast. Or if I'm sick or something, or something else comes up, then it's flexible in that way. But if outside of that, I fast every Wednesday, I don't eat food. On Fridays, I abstain from meat. And if you have trouble with the dietary restrictions. There are other fasts you can do that you should look into. There's bread and water fast. You don't have to be a nut and completely abstain from calories like I do. Bread and water, whatever. I think the church, they have their own fasting standards. If you look up the ones for Ash Wednesday, which is, I think, I'm not even going to say it because somebody will correct me. Look up the fasting standards for Ash Wednesday. Maybe you can apply that some days during the year. Or even like if you're sick, you have health problems, you can give up other things. So Blessed Carlo comes to mind, right? He was the kid that was very sick with leukemia, and he made a whole catalog online with all the Eucharistic miracles. He would give up video games because he was really sick, right? And he loved video games. So that would be his fast, if you will. His act of penance would be to give up video games. So there's things like that. Be flexible with it. Pray to the Holy Spirit. See what works for you. I try to do, I try to listen to the Spirit and see what the Spirit is guiding me to do, and then check that out against what is the church teaching on this. And if it doesn't violate the church teaching, then that's what I do personally. That's how I approach it. So, should you be fasting during Easter? And this is Joe Heschmeyer. It is well known that Catholics abstain from meat on Fridays during Lent, and that Ash Wednesday and Good Fridays are fast days in which we cut back on how much we eat. So yes, I should also explain the difference between abstinence and fasting. So on Fridays, I do abstain from meat. I don't eat meat. In addition, I cut back on how much I eat, but I don't completely wipe out the calories like I do on Wednesday. It's just a different kind of fast. It's a lesser restrictive fast, I guess you can say. And on Fridays, I have to be careful because I find myself falling into the reason why I also cut back on calories in addition to abstaining from meat, because abstaining from meat for me isn't always that big of a sacrifice. I love seafood, so I can find myself falling into this trap of, oh my goodness, spaghetti and clams for dinner is one of my favorite meals, and that's not much of a penance. So I typically only eat dinner on Fridays. Again, unless something comes up, and unless it's a holy day of obligation or a solemnity, I should say, then I don't. So let's just make that clarification. I didn't think that had to be said, but obviously it did. So here we go. It is well known that Catholics abstain from meat on Fridays during Lent, and that Ash Wednesday and Good Friday are fast days in which we cut back on how much we eat. But what about the rest of the year? Should we be abstaining and fasting on other Fridays? And in particular, what about right now during the season of Easter? It's easy to sound legalistic in answering these questions, so let's begin by layering something of a biblical and spiritual framework. First, fasting isn't optional in Christianity. Jesus says, when you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, and their fasting may be seen by men. Instead, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by men, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And I'm probably in violation of that, right? By even telling you about my fast, I probably shouldn't have done that. So there's clearly a wrong way to fast, doing it for the acclaim of men. But that's not an argument against fasting. Notice that Jesus says not if you fast, but when you fast. Second, we need fasting. God summarizes the story of Israel by saying that it was I who knew you in the wilderness in the land of drought. But when they had fed to the full, they were filled, and their heart was lifted up. Therefore, they forgot me. Hosea 13:5-6. That's true not just of Israel, but all of us. When things are going poorly, we realize our weakness and hopefully cry out to God for help. When things are going well, on the other hand, it's easy to buy into the illusion that we can take care of ourselves just fine without God. For this reason, Moses warned that when you eat and are full, then take heed lest you forget the Lord, who brought you out of the lands of Egypt. Deuteronomy 6:11-12. Fasting is one of the concrete ways in which we allow ourselves to be shaken out of this forgetfulness and self-delusion. Third, fasting is a practice of the church, not just a private devotion. It's great to decide for personal reasons that you need to fast for a particular period of time. But it would be a mistake to think all Christian fasting is like that. When Jesus says, when you fast, he doesn't use the second person singular as if it were up to each of us to decide when and where to fast. Instead, he says you in the plural, like when you all fast. We see concrete instances of local churches calling fasts in places like Acts 13, 1 through 3 and Acts 14 through 14:23. Fourth, fasting on Fridays has always been a part of Christianity. It's easy to think of fasting on Fridays as a modern thing, but it actually goes all the way back to the time of the apostles. A first century Christian text called the Didache instructs, "Let not your fast be with the hypocrites, for they fast on the second and fifth day of the week, but fast on the fourth day and the preparation." In other words, one of the ways that Christians were setting themselves apart from groups like the Pharisees was that the Pharisees would fast on Mondays and Thursdays, which is why I don't fast on either of those days, by the way, personally. And Christians would fast on Wednesdays, the fourth day of the week, and Fridays, the day of preparation. This wasn't an empty cultural marker like wearing pink on Wednesdays. It was a reminder of the death of the Lord Jesus on Good Friday, the day of preparation, Mark 15:42 and John 19:31. In the modern era, this has taken the form of abstaining from meat on Fridays rather than a full-fledged fast, but the reasoning is the same. As the USCCB puts it, Catholic peoples from time immemorial have set apart Friday for special penitential observance by which they gladly suffer with Christ that they may one day be glorified with him. This is the heart of the tradition of abstinence from meat on Friday, where the tradition has been observed in the Holy Catholic Church. Fifth, the joy of Easter trumps the fast. So here's, I guess, maybe where the confusion was. I was not saying to fast during the Easter octave. I mean, I shared family recipes last week for Easter, for the Easter octave. So when I say Easter, I mean the time from Easter Sunday, actually Saturday night when we break the fast, all the way until the Sunday of Divine Mercy. Now, my pizza game usually doesn't last that long. I think this time it ran out about Wednesday. So, anyway. St. John 5th, the joy of Easter trumps the fast. St. John the Baptist's disciples asked Jesus why his own disciples didn't fast, and he replied, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast." Matthew 9:15. That's the crux. Our fasting shouldn't interfere with rejoicing in the presence of Jesus. During the octave of Easter, the 8-day period from Easter Sunday to Divine Mercy Sunday, we celebrate the bridegroom returning to us from the grave. So it's fitting for a time to set all of our fasting and abstaining aside. Likewise, there are certain particularly important feast days called Solemnities in which we relax those disciplines in order to highlight the feast. And there's a bunch of Marian ones. And if I'm not, I have to keep an eye on those because sometimes they'll pop up on a Friday and, or a Wednesday or whatever, and I'll have to adjust my schedule for the week. So where does all of that leave us? The church's instructions are clear. Again, if you have a problem with this, you have to take it up with the church, not my comment box. Catholics who are able to do so are required. So who are able to do so? Let's stop right there because I might get hemmed up here too. Let's go to the bottom here. There's a star. The star says, those who should fast or abstain are exempted, including young kids, pregnant nursing moms, and people who are suffering from illnesses. So if you're one of those people, then this doesn't apply to you. This doesn't have to apply to you. You're not bound to this. Fasting and abstaining from meat should never endanger your health or the health of your child. Okay? All right. So the church's instructions are clear. Catholics who are able to do so, aside from those people I just listed, are required to abstain from meat on Fridays during Lent, Canon 1251, but we should also treat the entire season of Lent and every Friday throughout the year as penitential, Canon 1250. As the CCB explains Friday should be in each week something of what Lent is in the entire year. Just as every Sunday is a mini Easter, every Friday is a mini Lent, preparing us for Sunday and Easter. How do we mark that mini Lent outside the season of Lent itself? It depends a bit on where you live. In the United Kingdom, Catholics are required to abstain from meat throughout the year. In Canada, Ireland, and the United States, you can substitute something else for meat, like alcohol. But as the American bishops explained, the point of this was not to abolish Friday penance, but to urge Catholics to come up with other forms of penitential witness which may become as much a part of the devout way of life in the future as Friday abstinence from meat. All of this is relaxed entirely if a solemnity should fall on a Friday, Canon 1251. That always includes the first, but only the first Friday after Easter. So let me read that again. That always includes the first, but only the first Friday after Easter, since the universal norms specify that the first 8 days of Easter time constitute the octave of Easter and are celebrated as solemnities of the Lord. For the rest of Easter season, we're back to Friday penances. So for the rest of Easter season, we're back to Friday penances. Okay, just throwing that. This isn't me. This is Catholic Answers. Perhaps the best way to understand why is to consider the counsel of St. Ignatius of Loyola, who says in his Rules for Discernment, "Let him who is in consolation think how he will be in desolation, which will come after, taking new strength for then. The Fridays of Easter keep our Easter highs from getting so high that we forget the cross, just as the Sundays of Lent keep our Lentins from getting so low that we forget the resurrection. So this season, let us keep the spirit of Friday penance without losing an ounce of our Easter joy." And I think that's an excellent way to sum it up, and that's really the point I was trying to make. I was not saying to fast during high holy days. I didn't think that had to be said, and I'm I'm insulted a little. But anyway, I'm glad we can clear that up with Catholic Answers because, like I said, if you have a problem with that, take it up with them. I don't know. This is Holy Mother Church speaking, not me. When I said, I give my little disclaimer at the beginning of last video that I'm not a theologian. I'm just offering my own advice on what I do in the spirit of penance. But what I was saying, like, you don't have to do it the way I do it. I'm not a theologian. I'm not anybody. I'm not a lawmaker. Like, this is what I do. Maybe that could help somebody. That was the point. I know people, listen, if you want to know how Jesus felt when everybody kept misconstruing his words and seemed to be intent on misunderstanding him, start your own YouTube channel and you will enter into that with Jesus. Because sometimes I really don't understand how people can, everybody's different. So things that are like really obvious to me, I guess, are not obvious to other people. And so it's an act of, it's an exercise in humility. It's an exercise in open-mindedness, which is not my strong point. So it's actually good for me to see how other people interpret what I say. Because my immediate reaction is like, "What are you talking about?" And I have an attitude like that's who I am. I'm working on it. But I wanted to read this to clarify because that was a scary comment. I was obviously I started the video with, "We're in the octave of Easter. It's a time of celebration." So, that's where we're at. And I hope you all have a grace-filled Divine Mercy Sunday. I actually have a double header tomorrow. I have to go to 2 masses. I will be going to our 9 a.m. mass because my children sing in the choir. And then I will be going to our 11 a.m. mass because I am volunteering to sell pasta dinner tickets for our school. And somehow I thought I signed up for the 9 a.m., but it was the 11 a.m. So it will be a grace-filled day for me for sure. And y'all are in my prayers. Joan of Arc Media out.